So thank you to Future Foundation for coming to talk to us today. And the reason it's so important for us to have a sense of the type of work they're doing is because the trends that they are looking at are things that are directly affecting some of the advertiser brands that we work with, and in particular the creative agencies as they look to really resonate with consumers. And just to give you a sense of some of the other clients that Future Foundation have, they include Barclays, Argos, Tesco, and from our competitors, Guardian and News UK. So these issues that they showed us and shared with us this morning are things that Medialand and Soho and all those creative hot agencies are really looking at and interrogating. And I really wanted to follow up on Christoph's last example about women and to show that this is absolutely something that's already hitting us here in the UK. So ladies, bad news for us, first of all. I'm afraid that this is the year that Diet Coke has got rid of the hunk. There is no more Diet Coke hunk from this year. They're starting to look at empowering women much more about taking risks. Those ads are breaking later this month. And really, I think the stereotypical way that women have been portrayed in advertising, Special K adverts as the example I've used, sorry, just go to the slide. The Special K example here, that the only thing that makes us happy is when we can get back into our size 10 pair of jeans, really is perhaps starting to look quite outdated to the people that we're trying to communicate with. So I'm going to show you an ad that broke just a week ago. When I first put this presentation together, it had 3 million views on YouTube, and in the last week it's got an extra 1.5 million already, so it's standing at 4.5 million views. And it's a very different way of talking to women about their bodies, really, and it's by Sport England. If we could play the video, please. Thank you. So the second trend, and it wouldn't be a prediction about what's happening in the world of advertising without talking about native advertising or branded content. But this really is a slightly different perspective because, of course, that's a big area of focus for brands. But what's interesting is who is going to be producing this content on their behalf. So media agencies and creative agencies have spent literally the last, well, I'm sure Rupert will enlarge on this later, but decades trying to crack this nut, and it's one they're still trying to do now. But the reference I'm going to show is an ad that is produced by BuzzFeed. It's the first TV ad that they've ever produced on behalf of one of their clients. And it's a spin-off from a series that they've been running in a traditional native sense on their own site. What's interesting is this is breaking in the Super Bowl ad slot this weekend. $9 million for one ad in that, so a massive investment, and I'm sure it's something that's pissed off a lot of creative agencies as they quake in their boots about whether BuzzFeed is a new genuine competitor to them in the creative space.
But there's a bigger play here. I need you right up in there. I mean, jump on people's laps and try to walk across the table of sloppy sauces. If you can find someone who sneezes every time you get near them, get near them. And when it's time, you just walk right in front of the light box and sit down like you don't know what's going on. And then 3, 2, 1, that's right, kitty, get an airplane ride. A little private jet to the only prize worth competing for, a can of moist, delicious wet food. And touchdown. Works every time. Kitty get what he wants. Fly, kitty, fly.
So not necessarily creatively brilliant, but I think interesting to see BuzzFeed getting that real premiere slot in an ad break next weekend in the States. The Internet of Things really is a sense that we have more and more devices which aren't directly our phones or our laptops that are connecting us to the internet and giving marketeers more information than ever before. Right now, we think it's a bit clever if we target someone with a sun cream ad 2 weeks in advance of them checking out the weather in Turkey. But really, this is going to look like chicken feed when we get to some real tech stuff. The technology, things like Nest and some of the wearables that were talked about earlier, are going to mean we're going to know whether people are in the house or out, whether they've put their kids to bed yet, whether they've had dinner. A real breadth now of knowledge that means that it's going to be even more difficult for marketing people to understand how to use that data. So what we think of as big data now is going to look really tiny in just 2 years' time. The example I'm going to show you is one that's run on 4OD, so it's run on when you're watching some VOD content in an ad break, and it pulls in the data that you've forgotten that you've had to use to register with 4OD in the first place. Quite a clever use creatively. It's for Burberry monogram perfume, so it takes your initials, and if you keep your eye out, you'll see it's on the end of the bottle. Can you play this video, please?
I put a spell on you. Because you're mine. I put a spell on you. Yes, I did. Because you're mine.
My Burberry, the new fragrance for women.
Oh, sorry, the end's been chopped off that, but unhelpfully, but it shows the pack shot of the bottle of perfume with your initials on. And if you're on Twitter now and do a search, you'll see the number of people talking about that 4OD ad. So I didn't think this morning I'd be talking to you about someone having a shit, but that's exactly what I'm about to do. You may have seen this, some of our news brands covered it last week. And David Hickerson's blog picked up on it as well. But it just shows the impatience that we have. We all know that online we expect things to be responded to really quickly. But because we've got so used to that, it's now affecting us and our expectations in the real world as well. So it's where now real time meets real world activity. So someone on Twitter said, I've just had a reasonably large poo and there is no roll on the Virgin train 1730 from Euston to Glasgow. Please send help. And luckily, Virgin Train's social media team were on the case and replied, which coach, Adam? He replied, Jay, thank you. And they then sent back, we'll send some down to you now. So an example of us reacting really quickly to what consumers are saying and talking about. And that story was on the Birmingham Mail, Metro, Mail Online, the Mirror picked up on it as well. So you can see how these things are really getting brands talked about. The video I'm going to show is about that instant gratification. This won a lot of awards last year and has been in many of the roundups of the best work from last year. So if we can play the next video, please. I'll send around the link of these later so you can see some of the examples that have been running if we can't get them fixed by the end. And the next one was something that was touched on, and I've seen on Twitter some questions about this, generation wealth, that sense that now for the first time there's more over 40s than there are under 40s. That's something that just happened last year. We've reached that tipping point. And they're responsible for 80% of disposable income and 71% of assets, which is quite astounding numbers and really plays to our strengths when you look at some of the makeup of some of our products. I think the real challenge here, and this is the thing I alluded to with one of the comments on Twitter, is how brands talk to this audience, notoriously difficult. And one of the things they're trying to do within that is nostalgia, looking to the past. And unfortunately, I can confirm that the 90s now officially is the past. Again, in the Super Bowl ad breaks, if you look at the roundups next week, you'll see 3 examples which have gone to the past. One of them is a Baywatch parody. I'm going to show you an advert instead, which I think shows how not to do it, the patronising trap that lots of people fall into. Creative technologists. So 5 years ago, creative technologists were talked about, thought to be a fad for many. They are now the fastest growing departments in creative agencies, and they are really grappling with how their creative technology teams work with their more traditional creative teams to get some really sterling work, things I know that we've experienced previously here at Trinity Mirror. The examples that I've got here to show you are how technology has amplified traditional media. 2 outdoor examples where the technology has enabled the ads to respond to passing airplanes and passing trains. And lastly, a print example where a sun cream advert was looking to position themselves as being more than about just not getting sunburnt, but about looking after yourself and having fun generally in the sun. Can we try this video, please? So a few different things which are absolutely things that are making brands and marketeers and creative agencies really try and push the boundaries of creativity. And I'm really confident that this time next year we'll have a whole heap more examples along those themes, and hopefully next year the videos will actually play. Purposefully, there's been no social media examples in here, partly because we have Facebook coming to talk to us tomorrow. But now I'd like to hand you over to Richard Barley, who's going to give us a much more in-depth look at Vine.